Councilmember Flaherty.
Here.
Rosenberger. Sims.
Here.
Piedmont Smith.
Here.
Scambaluri.
Here.
Rallo.
Here.
Sandberg.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Volin.
Let's continue with our land and labor acknowledgement for the City of Bloomington. We recognize that the City of Bloomington sits on native land. The city, as well as city administrative buildings, are on the traditional homelands of the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people, and we acknowledge they are past, present, and future caretakers of this land. We also acknowledge that much of the economic progress and development in Indiana, and specifically Bloomington, resulted from the unpaid labor and forced servitude of people of color, specifically enslaved African labor. We acknowledge that this land remains home to and a site of gathering and healing for many indigenous and other people of color, and commit to the work necessary to create and promote a more equitable and just Bloomington. We move forward knowing and acknowledging our rich, complicated, and sometimes painful past so that we can learn from it and create a true land of opportunity. Moving into agenda summation, we have no minutes that require approval this evening, so we will move directly into reports from council members, then reports from the mayor and city offices, including a report on the College Avenue Walnut Street corridor study launch. We'll hear any reports from council committees and then enter our first of 2 periods of public comment. We'll take up appointments to boards and commissions and then move into legislation for second readings and resolutions. Under that heading, we have Appropriation Ordinance 23-04 to specifically appropriate from the General Fund, ARPA, State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, Parks and Recreation General Fund, and Motor Vehicle Highway Street Fund expenditures not otherwise appropriated, appropriating a portion of the amount of funds reverted to various city funds at the end of 2022 for unmet needs in 2023. We'll then move into legislation for first readings. There we have Ordinance 2311 to amend Title VI of the Bloomington Municipal Code entitled Health and Sanitation, regarding updating and harmonizing Chapters 4 and 5 of Title VI of the Bloomington Municipal Code. We'll then go into our second of 2 periods of public comment. We'll take up matters of council schedule, and then we'll adjourn. So, with no minutes to approve, let's move into reports from council members. I'll start on my far left with Council Member Volin.
No report.
Thank you. Council Member Smith. Council Member Sandberg.
No report.
Council Member Rallo.
I have no report.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I have no report. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Member Piedmont Smith.
No report.
Council Member Sims.
No report. Thank you.
Council Member Flaherty.
A couple of things, thank you. First, just wanted to draw attention of folks to the application for Residence Academy, which a news release went out about this week. That's been going on for, I guess, 24 years now to encourage civic engagement and educate residents on city government. If you go to bloomington.in.gov/news, that's one of the most recent releases. You can find details on how to apply. That's 10 Thursday evening meetings between August 24th and October 26th, with sessions by city staff and tours of city facilities and things like that. I took part, I believe, in 2019 myself, and I think a number of my colleagues probably have as well. A couple other things I wanted to mention. First, my monthly constituent meeting is going to be Monday, May 22nd at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom. You can find details for that on bloomington.in.gov/council and go to the calendar, or the sidebar on that webpage has calendar events linked. And then additionally, just wanted to note that next Thursday, May 25th at 5:30 p.m., 5:30 to 7 p.m., the Council Special Committee on Council Processes will be meeting to continue our work on process reform, and in particular diving deeper on board and commission reform. Our last meeting a couple weeks ago helped to kind of set the stage for our work for the year and beyond, and we'll be digging in and prioritizing boards and commissions first. So I expect that will involve review and discussion of the Novak report that was issued a couple years back, or maybe a year ago, by the city administration, reviewing boards and commissions and outlining some recommendations. I believe the council has now set up a landing page for the Special Committee on Council Processes that has that report. And I know we're also looking to talk about ways to get board and commission appointee input on those recommendations and the reform process, as well as developing some other avenues for public input, like surveys and the like. So if you have interest in those activities, please feel free to join us. Again, that's Thursday, May 25th, 5:30 to 7 p.m., and you can find the details on the council calendar as well. Thanks.
Thank you, and I have no report this evening. So with that, let's move to the mayor and city offices. I believe we have Ms. Rosenbarger with us this evening for the report on the College Avenue and Walnut Street corridor study launch.
Thank you. Beth Rosenbarger, Assistant Director of Planning and Transportation Department. Tonight, I am here to present and talk about the College and Walnut Corridor Study. Slide, please. I'll talk about why we're conducting a corridor study, what is the corridor study, the goals of the study, involvement, timeline, and questions. I'll do them pretty fast. I'll do my best. First, I do talk about the approach. So this is an Ideas Welcome project. We, I think, are very proud to be a community that hosts a major research institution, and we like to bring that curiosity and interest to large community projects. So, I have a tickle. We're interested in research and data and lived experience, and we're interested in gathering all that information together in order to examine these really important streets in our community. As a community, we can discuss our needs, our limitations, and our goals. And luckily, we do have adopted community goals, both in the comprehensive plan and in the transportation plan, specifically related to this project. Sometimes goals conflict with each other, and I think we are all willing to have those tough conversations when goals conflict, to talk about it and talk about how that impacts our use of the streets, and just acknowledge that conflict when it comes up. And most importantly, let's stay curious. Slide, please. I should have said, Ted Lasso says, don't bring an umbrella to a brainstorm. So why are we conducting a corridor study? In summary, I would say safety, accessibility, use of public space, community goals, and adopted plan recommendations. But guess what? I'm diving into each of these. Slide. So along the stretch of corridor, which I'll talk about more, is the bypass to Allen Street. It's about 4.5 miles total of street. There are about 150 crashes each year. So that is 150 motor vehicle crashes every year along these important streets in our community. I think a lot of people who experience this space are willing to tell you the speed limit is 20 on both College and Walnut for most of it in the corridor area, and we're pretty confident people exceed the speed limit in these locations. Slide. So we are looking to improve safety. When we look at streets and how they're serving us, this is the intersection of College and 11th, and it is about 60 feet to cross the sidewalk there. And even if you said we're gonna keep the two through lanes, 2 turn lanes, and a bike lane, there are ways to design that space differently to make the pedestrian crossing shorter. So every space where pedestrians are crossing an intersection and exposed to automobiles is a conflict space and a space where you can have crashes. Also, when we look at traffic signals and how traffic signals are timed, the pedestrian crossing time is one of the dependent variables that determines what a signal phase and signal cycle can be, because it is timed based on how long it takes a person to cross the street. So counterintuitively, or maybe, I guess, win-win is when you make pedestrian crossing distances shorter, it is both safer for pedestrians and can improve signal timing and signal turnover because you've now reduced how long a signal phase has to be. That really got in the weeds, sorry. Slide. Why are we conducting a corridor study? Along these two streets, we have an inaccessible pedestrian network and an incomplete pedestrian network. This is an image with Miller Showers Park on the right side of the image, facing south, and on the left side are private properties. It looks almost like it's a sidewalk, but that's a dirt path worn into a property on what is the east side of the street there. Slide, please. This is an area on South College, just south of First Street. It's kind of hard to tell, but this is a driveway, and that's the sidewalk, and they're just standing curbs. So anyone who's using a wheelchair, an assistive mobility device, or somebody with a stroller might be able to get by, but that's an inaccessible sidewalk, and somebody has to go into the street. Next slide. And you might say, well, they could cross the street and use the sidewalk on the other side, but there isn't sidewalk on the other side in this location. And also in the vicinity, this is Walnut facing west. The closest, very close destination to here is the Bee Line and Hopscotch Coffee. And there is not actually a complete sidewalk path to get from the intersection of Walnut and Dodds to the Bee Line and Dodds. I've heard about this from multiple people in the community, and that is a very challenging section to cross. A lot of people end up sprinting across the street at the turn on Dodds. Slide. And another reason to conduct a corridor study, through the pandemic, we have started using our public space differently. And we get to make the decision as a community, do we want to design some of our streets and public spaces to permanently accommodate these uses? Do we want to design those spaces to be able to flexibly accommodate different uses? Or do we want to design it so they are not there? I think the outdoor dining, people can have different opinions. We see a lot of people using it. I think we can probably agree that the orange barricades are not attractive. The seating might be, it's adding some pedestrian interest and it's adding more people out on the street. But there is a way, if we want to keep that more permanently, to design it into the fabric of the street so that it can be both safe and more attractive. Slide, please. And why are we doing this? Input from residents and input from council. So the need for the corridor study was identified in the transportation plan adopted in 2019, and it's based on goals from the comprehensive plan adopted in 2018, and both of those plans did include a lot of public engagement. Slide. So what is the corridor study? We're talking about College and Walnut from the bypass on the northern end to Allen Street on the southern end. It's 2.2 miles on each street, and that's 4.5 miles of street total. When we say a corridor study, I was talking to one group and they're like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, great question. We are talking about the streets. We are talking about the sidewalks, street trees, motor vehicle facilities, bicycle and scooter facilities, transit facilities, outdoor seating space, outdoor merchandising space, loading and unloading, deliveries, and more. So when we talk about the street, we do picture all these things and the many activities that need to take place there. How's it going with those activities right now? What's working well, what's not working well, and how do we want to improve upon that? So questions when we look at all these activities is, how does the design of the street support the adjacent land uses? And we're talking about a long corridor, so that will be different in different areas of the corridor. We know that there are, Miller Showers Park is different than the Courthouse Square, and that's different than 2nd Street near Kroger. So we can take a look with each of those areas and talk about the street design and talk about street designs that can support those spaces to either as they are or as we want them to be as a community. So the first part is analyzing the first part of the corridor study is to analyze existing conditions. So that can include motor vehicle traffic volumes, motor vehicle speeds, crash analysis, a street tree inventory, which we have, which is great, curb space, transit routes, transit facilities like the transit stops, sidewalk facilities, sidewalk accessibility, bicycle facilities, and more. So those are some of the existing conditions of the space that we will look at. So the overall sort of process with the corridor study looks at existing conditions, and then there were goals adopted in the transportation plan for the corridor study to achieve, but we know there's space to add in more goals. Maybe as a community we missed something. So let's talk about that and make sure we get all the goals we want to achieve as a community as part of this. So identify any additional goals. One I would suggest is sort of climate action. That was not top of mind when when the corridor study was adopted, or the transportation plan. From there, in a community process, we develop conceptual designs, then evaluate conceptual designs using the community goals as a rubric, and then follow a process to adopt a conceptual design into the transportation plan. These are the goals that are listed in the transportation plan for a corridor study. I will read in a summary version, and you all will get this emailed to you, and it'll be publicly available too. So the goal of a corridor study should be to determine how best to provide pedestrian access along the length of the corridor, provide bicyclist access along the length of the corridor, provide buses and other mass transit with safe and efficient ways to travel along the corridor, accommodate potential new and emerging forms of transportation, facilitate safe and efficient automobile traffic to the maximum extent possible in light of the aforementioned goals, and to enhance the vitality of downtown Bloomington businesses and institutions. So involvement in this corridor study. We are really interested in hearing from people, and we're trying to create lots of ways to hear from people. If anybody in the audience wants to visit, you can use this QR code as it is on the screen, and it'll pull up the project website. And we invite people on that website to share input in several ways. This is a clip of the website. First, you can sign up for emails to get email updates about the project, about the study. You can fill out a form to share any open feedback you want. It's not a specific survey, it just is open-ended, some questions about to provide your feedback and perspective on the corridor as it is. You can sign up for an event called a Stroll and Discuss, where I meet you and we go and walk about a mile of the corridor together and talk about it with a group of people. People can invite city staff to join a meeting that they already have. So if a neighborhood wants to invite us to a meeting, we're happy to take the time and come to that neighborhood meeting. If there are other groups that want to invite staff, that is an option too. And then we will have public meetings and more input options the week of June 12th, 2023, which includes 2 public meetings. So I invite council, to all the input opportunities, but specifically if you all would like to go to a Stroll and Discuss, I'd love to have you. I know one council member here has already signed up for one later this week. And with emails, I tell people, if you don't see a time that works for you, please let me know. This is my full-time job. I am happy to come up with a time that works for you. Ideally, we can have at least 3 people, and we'll go and look at whatever section of the corridor you want to look at. Slide, please. We're also, we have a steering committee for the project as well, which we are still forming, which will include members of different institutions, the business community, and others throughout the community. And so just want to tell people again to save the date for the public meetings on Tuesday, June 13th and Thursday, June 15th. Those will be in person here at City Hall, and we will have them streaming online too. So with this project, you might say, this is such a big project, but where are we in it? Great news, we're at the beginning. So we're still in this phase of collecting data and existing conditions, and then the meetings in June move us into the what's called a or discovery and design charrette. So we're still right at the beginning and excited to be spreading the word about about the corridor study. So the timeline is, I'm just gonna say, it's a little nebulous, but I think people get very nervous that we're talking about streets that are very important in the community, and we're talking about the possibility of changing those streets. So what I want people to understand is it is a process, and there's also a possibility of no change. But if we were to look at this timeline and say right now we're in the existing conditions and conceptual design that's the corridor study. After we develop a conceptual design, we still have to decide if and how to move forward. So ideally deciding on one design, moving forward with that, and amending it into the transportation plan. So let's say we do that, that's likely 6 months to a year from now is probably how long that would take. And then we've done that, it would take to start design of a street making detailed design from a conceptual plan takes 1 to 2 years. So just in the realm of, I know it is scary, but if as a community we decide to move forward, we are looking at a years-long process, not like we're gonna go change College and Walnut tomorrow, just to be clear. Questions? And I also brought printouts in case people like paper that I can email you all, that you can easily have to email to constituents too, and then I can hand out here for anybody who wants some paper information too. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Rosenberger. Are there questions from council? Okay. Councilmember Rowland?
Just want to say thanks for a presentation and that clarifies the earliness of the process that we're in. Can you also speak to whether or not there are any other, what is triggering the process now? Is it just that the department has decided that it's time to start looking into a charrette? Or, why did it not happen 3 months earlier or 3 months later?
I think just the time of work, how long it takes to get something together. So I know this was, did we include it in our 2022 budget as a department? And we ended up having staffing shortages, so it took longer to get started. So I think the timing is based on when we could make it happen and where we find ourselves.
Well, I appreciate that because that's sort of the same thing we go through at the MPO, where projects can take years to build. Just NDOT alone, it needs a lot of years to stage a process. So I appreciate that you emphasized that this is not going to be an overnight or a quick thing. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Additional questions? Okay. If not,
Member Rollo has his hand up too. I don't know when that comes in, sorry.
I'm sorry. It's your job to help me.
Thanks.
Councilmember Rollo.
Thanks for the presentation. I would like to know, so this conceptual design in the charrettes, is that done in-house? And at what point will you hire a consultant to take that conceptual design forward? Is that the idea?
Thank you. So the question is staff leading the charrette, or at what point do we hire a consultant? We have hired a consultant. The consulting firm is Tool Design Group, and they are doing sort of the detailed existing conditions analysis, and they will lead the charrette. It's always, we say staff still does a lot of work when we hire consultants. For example, I'm the person here, and I'm the person leading all the stroll and discuss events and a lot of other things. So we do rely on the consultants to do some of the detailed analysis and to lead specifically the charrette portion.
Okay, and since a consultant has been chosen, I wondered, will there be an appropriation coming to the council for that expense, or is that already been budgeted?
Thank you. So, no, there doesn't need to be an appropriation because this was part of our department budget for 2023 with the College and
Okay.
Walnut Corridor study specifically. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions? Okay. Seeing none, I'll just actually close out this section of the agenda. I actually looked at all the times for the stroll and learn, stroll and discuss kind of sessions, and it seemed like a lot of them are scheduled during the workday. Would it be possible to schedule some? I know that you said get a group of people together and let us know, but sometimes that's more difficult for people than being given the option of coming on a Saturday or coming in the evening. Days are pretty long right now, so could we possibly make use of the extended daylight and schedule some evening options for people as well?
Yes. Actually did an after-work one yesterday, and tomorrow, it's not a public one, but I'm meeting with a group from the chamber. But I can add more, and I definitely I get what you're saying, where it's harder to get people together, and I can create more options, and if not enough people sign up, that's okay, we figure it out, but we can create more. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, and that winds up this section of the agenda. Thank you for being with us, Ms. Rosenbarger. Okay. Are there any reports from council committees this evening? Okay. Seeing none, that brings us to our first of two periods of public comment for items not on the agenda this evening. May I have a show of hands in chambers for those who wish to offer comment? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and Deputy Attorney Kulak, could you extend our invitation on Zoom, please?
Who would like to make a comment on Zoom, you will need to use the raise hand feature. You can find that in the reactions tab, or if you're on a mobile device, you can find it on the more tab. Right now, we have one hand raised so far.
Okay, thank you. For those in chambers, please approach the podium, and if you would, please sign in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do 5 minutes, yeah. Welcome. If you would, please introduce yourself and share your name for the record, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Okay. My name is Matt Austin, and I am currently a commissioner on the Commission on Sustainability. So back in 2018, the Sustainability Action Plan was set a goal to divert at least 40% of the volume of residential waste from being landfilled. And then in 2021, the Climate Action Plan had a goal of increasing landfill solid waste diversion by 30% of the 2018 values. Unfortunately, in 2021, we saw Green Earth, a major a company that did a lot of composting for IU in Bloomington, shut down. And then at the end of this month, everybody's probably aware that Earth Keepers is also shutting down. So with these goals in mind, we are sliding backwards. So that brings me to the point of my comment. Yesterday, I and a couple council members attended the Rumpke opening. Okay, currently the city has a contract with Republic. I am encouraging the city to give their notice, 60 days notice. The contract, the one-year contract ends in October, to give them the 60-day notice so that Rumpke can also now give a bid. The reason that I believe that the city should choose Rumpke over Republic, there are 3 main reasons that I have found so far. Number 1, the landfill that Republic uses is 67 miles away. The landfill that Rumpke uses is only 35 miles away. So the carbon footprint is much less taking our trash to the landfill. Number 2, Republic does not harvest methane from their landfill. Rumpke does. Okay? And number 3, most importantly, and this is on the recycling side, if anybody's ever used broth or drinks almond milk, nut milk, these are called Tetra Paks. I was looking for some low-hanging fruit of ways to reduce trash going to the landfill, and I did my due diligence and found out that Republic does not recycle these. Well, what's great, another great aspect of Rumpke is that Rumpke does recycle these. So with our goal of reducing waste going to the landfill, You guys are probably familiar with these, have probably used products that use Tetra Pak. We could probably reduce our waste somewhere between 2 to 5%. So it's not a massive amount, but it is significant, and it helps us get closer to that goal, considering the fact that companies that were helping us reduce our waste are no longer in business. So once again, I really encourage the city to put in the 60-day notice so that we can make sure that we get bids from both companies, and I encourage the city to go with Rumpke because they are definitely a better choice when it comes to recycling, and the footprint of Rumpke is much less. Thank you for your time.
Let's have our next person here in chambers sign in while we go to Zoom.
Next on Zoom, we have Dave Huber, and there are some slides too.
We will get your slides queued up here.
Great, thank you.
Okay. And we now have them on screen, so
Excellent.
Please go ahead, you'll have 5 minutes.
Excellent, thank you. Hey, so much. Thanks so much for having me here. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces. I've been working with Downtown Bloomington Inc. and Talisha Kopic to put on a innovation design thinking workshop over the last couple of months, and we've had a number of great residents and citizens partaking, and business owners, and a few people from the city as well. And this is culminating in a downtown innovation showcase June 2nd, and just wanted to extend the invitation to you all and invite you to come join us. What we're doing is coming up with new and creative ways to explore how we might make downtown a little better. I get to do design thinking workshop facilitation in my day job and really love Bloomington. I grew up there, went to undergrad and grad school there, and own a home there, and relocated back during the pandemic, and wanted to volunteer and offer my workshop facilitation services to Downtown Bloomington Inc. And this is the culmination of a lot of people's work. And so if you want to go through the slides a little bit here, you can see some of the photos of some of the participants and some of the objective that we had for the workshop there. You might recognize there's Holly Warren and John Fernandez and some local artists, Betsy Trotsky in there, and come up with a lot of ideas on how we might make downtown Bloomington better. Go ahead and slide through a couple of these. And so we have a couple of prototypes that we'll be putting on. There are 6 different themes. If you want to go to the last slide here, you can see an overview. There's Ryan Conway from Earthkeepers. Oh, here's the goal of the workshop, to walk away with actionable ideas to test that bring the most value to the people coming downtown. And then finally, on this last slide here, we had the teams break into 6 different categories and themes here. So around the square near downtown, you will see ideas that are leaning into these themes. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Huber, much appreciated. So let's come here in chambers. And if you would confirm your name for the record, please, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Okay. Daryl Rubel. I just want to say thank you to all the veterans, the past, present, and future veterans. Thank you for all you've done, man. I really appreciate it. You know, living in the best country in the world, man. I'm proud of this country. It's the best. Very proud of it. I've got 4 children, and they're all super proud of this country, man. They all fly the flag. I've taught them right, man. This is the best country. But you know, I really want to start out with some good, bad, and ugly. Okay, the good, the veterans. Thank you again, all you guys out there. Thank you very much. One of your city employees. He's a jewel. This guy's a jewel. Curtis Gilstrap works at Rose Hill. My wife and my daughter that passed away 2 years ago, Sarah, at 33, and my wife is buried there. And Curtis called last week. There's a little problem with the grave site. Had to move the headstone a little bit. And you know, Curtis treated me like family. Curtis Gilstrap. Very caring. We're very fortunate to have people like that working for the city. I've known Curtis for a long time, man. He's the best. We've got a lot of good city employees. You know, I had Joe Van Devener as a boss at Street for a long time. Great guy. Ron Arthur, all the secretaries down there, Dana, Chris, Danny Bittner, Herb Kinzer, you know, all good people. you know, I really appreciate them guys being in my life. They've kind of made me who I am, man. Plus my dad, he done a good job too. That's the good. The bad is, I was up here last time and I talked about, you know, the roads and people coming in and doing their utility cuts across the road. And I brought up the thing on Lindbergh, and I done some digging, and I found out who it was that done the utility cut across the road at Snittiger, okay? So I called Snittiger. I've called him every day this week. I've talked to someone every time. We'll call you right back. I ain't heard nothing back from him. I want my car fixed. They knocked a alignment out of my Odyssey van. I want it fixed. I would like to, I don't mean to demand, I would like to have it fixed, and someone would call me. That's why we got to put signs out there so we know who these people are that are doing these utility cuts. Like I said, utilities, they come in, they do that stuff. They patch them right in there. You don't have to worry about them guys, man. I know a lot of them guys are super duper guys. Allen and Rogers, the thing in the road, the thing, you know, Isabel knows what I'm talking about. My daughter lives around the corner. And you know, when you come up Allen to Rogers and you try to turn, you always hit that curb right there. I'd like to see if someone could do something with it. I called Adam Wason. He's looking into it, but that needs to be looked at. Go up Allen and turn right on Rogers. And you always hit that curb. I don't know if that's intentional, but it seems like it could be, because there's no way you can miss it. You got to pretty well swing out to almost hit that curb to be able to miss that thing. You know, that needs to be looked at. You know, I don't have a big speech written or anything. I put a couple of things on my hand there, Palm Pilot. A buddy of mine taught me to do that. But man, I'm super proud of this flag here, man. That thing's been good to me. You know, I was going to bring my phone in and play the song that Johnny Cash does, this ragged flag, old flag, but I left my phone in my car. I didn't want to bring it in here to disrespect it, rain or something. But man, that song is about this country, man. You know, we're being invaded at the border. They're walking right in, walking into the neighborhoods. They're spreading all across the country, and I'm not happy about that. And we need to put our men to work. Like I said last time, Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs is my hero. Man, that guy's super smart. He done the Dirty Jobs thing. That was pretty cool. But that guy is smart. 7 million men between the ages of 25 and 45 aren't even working or looking for a job in this country. We need to get them guys to work. Hey, get to work. If you're out there watching me, get a job and help your country. We've got people invading us going to come and get your jobs. And the backpacks that people are carrying, I don't know what's in them. They need to be searched. They're coming in illegal. Come in legal. That's what this country is about. If you're in another country, you need to come to a good, cool place. It's the United States, but we need to start searching in backpacks. And God bless America, and also God bless. Okay, God bless
for your comments. Thank you for your
God bless the
comments.
Bloomington
Mr.
Police
Rubel.
Department. Them guys do a great job.
Mr. Rubel, thank you.
Thank you.
Your comments are up. Your
Okay,
time
I'm
is
going to
up.
leave this right here, just for you.
You can keep that with you, please.
No, I won't. I'll leave it here for you. Okay, thank you.
And do we have it, just for my own reference, do we have anyone else on Zoom?
At this time, I don't see any hands raised. There is a comment from a Samuel Dove, but I'm going to need to queue that up in just a minute.
Okay. Let's come here in chambers. Welcome. If you would, please confirm your name for the record, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening. Council, I'm Christopher Emdry, Advocacy and Policy Director for the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce and 2016 Residents Academy, a fine program the city puts out that is both informative and fun. As some of you are aware, this week is National Police Week, which honors and remembers the law enforcement officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty by giving their lives. The tradition was started by President John F. Kennedy's 1961 service-oriented designation, May 15th, as Peace Officers Memorial Day. It was a solemn reminder of our community to our community to show appreciation and pride in the public safety employees here who serve with integrity and dedication. The BPD remains a testament to being a well-trained, trusted, and community-minded police force. It has built the confidence of its residents through innovative measures such as being the first department in the state to embed social workers. Along the same lines, the Chamber commends the city for its recent social media campaign to recruit new police officers to work for the Bloomington Police Department. The city continues to have concerning shortage of police officers, and we encourage the city leaders to take whatever measures necessary to recruit, hire, and retain the number of officers that are needed to fully staff our police services. On behalf of the Chamber's 870 members, I just want to reiterate that we appreciate the public servants who make the many sacrifices to keep our residents and businesses safe each day. Bloomington is a great community to live, work, and have fun. For anyone considering a rewarding career in law enforcement and public service, look no further than Bloomington and know that the Chamber of Commerce fully supports all of our officers who make a difference in our community. I thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Let's have our next commenter here in chambers. Oh, I miscounted. Oh, please. If you would, when you arrive at the podium, please sign in and then state your name for the record, and then you will have 5 minutes.
Justin Foster. Don't start that clock yet, please. Hello, everybody. I want to apologize. I'm kind of out of practice, haven't appeared in public in a long time, don't write neatly anymore, and can't read my writing. And I haven't been to a council meeting or seen one in a long time until this afternoon. And I was pretty shocked at the meeting you had last week.
I apologize. Can
Yes, I'm sorry. Justin Foster, F-O-S-T-E-R.
Foster, please go ahead.
Good. Restart the clock, please. Thank you. So I was shocked by what I saw today in your last week's meeting. I was shocked, and I'm going to talk about your Greenway program, but I was shocked by a kind of snide, ridiculing, willful mischaracterization of one of your colleagues by one member in particular, but an attitude that was shared by a few. I used to watch the council. I'd never seen anything like that before. I don't know what's happened. I don't know whether it's inherent in somebody's character here or something has changed in the dynamic here, but it was shocking. The second thing that surprised me was apparently a disdain for democracy. Council members rejected the opportunity to participate in the Greenway program. We might get in the way. We might destroy neighborhoods. We can't do that. That's up to the commissions and their autocratic ways to tell us the way things should be because they are experts. Like Putin has experts, but democracy is messy. And maybe Mr. Rallo's ordinance amendment wasn't quite right. Maybe some of you should say, let's get in there earlier to discuss this. But by relinquishing your role as elected representatives, the only ones with accountability with the budget that you have and the determination you have to make, $400,000 spent on this, what's going to be the Hawthorne Greenway, and you say, none of our business. Okay, first of all, Greenway, as defined by Ms. Rosenbarger, is a place where things are slow and things are safer with cars and pedestrians, and they can coexist. That's the definition she gave. Yes, they can be helped out and encouraged by butt-outs, cut-outs, bump-ins, and things like that. So a greenway, then, could be the Hawthorne Greenway as it is designated today. When I attended a meeting in Bryant Park to talk about this proposed greenway, this was the second meeting, apparently. The first one I didn't know about. But I can tell you that 60 of my neighbors, most of whom I don't know, showed up and were horrified with the design that was laid before them. This was not what they had talked about the first time they told me and they said to their representatives. And it was shocking. Why was it shocking? Because a dead-end street where kids play wants to, the Greenway program said, let's make things greener and cut through there and let bicyclists come and interrupt the hopscotch games of these people, of these kids on a dead-end road. Let's do that. Or let's make Bloomington greener, a majestic old street like Hawthorne, wide with antique lights leading the way, with 4 stop signs in 6 blocks. That's safe as it is, that you can walk down the middle of the street. There are cars there too. The only dangerous intersection is at Atwater, where you need a street light. And the person who said that was a dangerous street, they didn't tell you where the accidents occurred, whether they involved pedestrians. Any stop sign, any 4-way stop, there are sometimes accidents. That was misrepresentation at its worst, in my opinion. So, yes, you authorize greenways, but what is a greenway? Is it just a place now that's designated for South Downs and down to Hawthorne? Or is it bump outs? Is it $400,000 on a street that is already slow and everything that you would want in a greenway? But you're making it, they are making it, the commissions, you are yellowing Bloomington into a bilious yellow when their autocratic decisions about what's to be destroys the neighborhood, South Downs, by cutting through, or destroys a magnificent street that is part of what Bloomington is. How can you sit back and allow this? Somebody proposes an amendment, says, hey, let's get in this. Let's them answer to somebody. Commissions have their agendas. They should have their agendas. They have their perspectives. They want to do something. But they don't represent everybody. You represent everybody. You represent everybody. You can't let them make these decisions imperiously. Am I running over time?
You are over time.
Okay, I'll
Extra.
all right.
So,
Can
thank
I
you for your
talk later
comments.
also to Bender?
You are welcome to submit comments in writing. We have
I mean, in the
email-
second comment session, no, okay.
One comment period.
Thank you
per
for letting
email.
me appear.
Thank you for your
And
comments this
shame on you,
evening.
sir, for the way you talked about Mr. Rollins.
Is, Mr. Foster, Mr. Foster? Yes. Your comment time is over. Do we have any additional commenters on Zoom?
You would like me to read. Let's start that. Sam Dove would like the council to be aware of a tweet by Greg Alexander that shows slide 1, a Parks and Rec managed bicycle transportation facility, and a slide 2, an engineering department managed bicycle transportation facility with a Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man meme and Predator handshake meme with text, a vulgar word F, cyclists.
Thank you for that comment, Mr. Dove. Are there any additional comments here in chambers? Seeing none, and none on Zoom? Deputy Attorney Kulak, none on Zoom?
No additional hands raised.
Okay, thank you. That'll conclude our first of 2 periods of public comment. And that takes us to appointments to boards and commissions. Do we have any this evening? Seeing none, let's move into legislation for second readings and resolutions.
Madam President, I move that ordinance 2304 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the deputy clerk please call the roll on the motion to introduce?
Councilmember Sims? Yes. Piedmont Smith? Yes. Scambaluri?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Sandberg? Yes. Smith? Yes. Bolin? Yes. Flaherty?
And that passes. Will the deputy clerk please read?
Appropriation Ordinance 2304 to specifically appropriate from the General Fund, ARPA, State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, Parks and Recreation General Fund, and Motor Vehicle Highway Street Fund expenditures not otherwise appropriated, appropriating a portion of the amount of funds reverted to various city funds at the end of 2022 for unmet needs in 2023. Synopsis. This ordinance appropriates an additional $4,035,551 of funds from the general fund, ARPA, State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, Parks and Recreation General Fund, and Motor Vehicle Highway Fund for a variety of expenditures by departments and for certain public safety retention measures.
Thank you.
I move that ordinance 2304 be adopted.
Thank you. I believe we have Controller Underwood with us this evening. Virtually.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Sound up just a bit. Good evening, Jeff Underwood, City Controller, coming to you remotely. Tonight we have an appropriation ordinance, number 4, quickly moving up those numbers, that consists of really 4 pieces. One, our first reversions request since 2020, kind of pre-pandemic, so we're happy to bring that to you. A technical correction for our motor vehicle highway, and then 2 requests related to public safety coming out of American Rescue Plan Act funds, or ARPA for short. We have a number of people. Cheryl Gilliland from my office will be presenting the reversions. Jeff McMillan from my office will be presenting the technical correction for the Motor Vehicle Highway Fund. And then myself, along with our Personnel Director, Emily Pearson, and our Corporation Counsel, Beth Kate, and Deputy Mayor, Mary Catherine Carmichael, on the 2 ARPA requests, as well as I'll be answering questions as needed on the other parts of it. I would ask, is there any preference from the council on the order of those 4 requests that you would like to see us go through?
Council members? I'm not seeing any preference, Controller Underwood, at your discretion, please.
All right, well, let's, since we have department heads with us, we'll just jump into the reversion piece of it, and I'll turn it over to Cheryl Gilliland.
You to pull the mic a little closer. Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Better, thanks.
Great, thank you. As Controller Underwood mentioned, I will be speaking on reversions this evening. So a portion of,
Please.
Cheryl Gilliland, Director of Auditing and Financial Systems, Controller's Office. Okay, so for the portion of Ordinance 23-04, we are requesting the distribution of general funds in the amount of $626,100 and Parks General Funds in the amount of $233,600. In the past, the mayor has allowed departments to spend approximately 50% of their prior year annual savings. This type of reward system has been on hold since 2020 at the start of the pandemic. So tonight, we're really happy to be back offering this type of reward to departments. So the ordinance memo submitted earlier outlines the requests from 15 different departments and briefly describes how each department plans to utilize their portion of prior year savings. In a few cases, we had departments combine prior year savings to support one single initiative, or simply to opt out and give up their savings to the good of the order. As we mentioned, the ordinance also requests funding for the Parks General Funds, as the Parks Department did experience prior year savings. So the memo also outlines the details of how they plan to spend their savings. At the end of 2022, the general fund reversion total was $1.39 million. Parks General Fund reversion was the amount of $0.593 million. So this evening, Controller Underwood, Deputy Controller McMillan, City Department heads, and I would like to thank you for your consideration of this portion of the Ordinance 23-04. We're here this evening
either in person or online, to answer any questions that you may have. So I will open that up right now for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gilliland. Questions from council? Councilmember Sims, then Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Thank you. Turned off on myself. When it was announced that we would do the housing incentive with our BPD and fire department, that's part of what this appropriation is that not correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess my question is, has any of those actions occurred since it was announced by administration? Have we helped
I'll jump in
anyone?
there.
Have we helped anyone yet?
I'll jump in there. We'll be addressing that later in the evening. As I said, there's 4 parts to this request. We're covering the general fund and Parks General Fund reversion piece of that ordinance. But we'll come back to the Housing Incentive Fund and give you information on who has taken advantage of that, as well as the program we'd like to introduce.
I guess it has to be. Sure.
Yes, Ms. Gilliland, so in the general fund, there was $1.39 million of reversions or unspent funds in 2022, is that right?
Yes.
And in this app ord, we are asked to appropriate $626,100.
Correct.
So does the rest just go in our reserves, or what happens to the rest of that money?
So, yes, we'll have 38.2% is identified as cash reserves, and then we'll have the 33% that's considered target reserves.
So to directly answer your question, this is Controller Underwood, is the remaining funds basically revert back into the balance of the general fund and are a part of the total cash balance available to be appropriated.
Those reversions, we have 38.2% cash reserves, or that's before these reversions?
That with this, prior to this request, we would be at we were at 38.2%. If you approve this request, that percentage will change to 37.0%. And as Cheryl indicated, our target is 33%. So we'll be slightly above the target for the general fund. And that's a combination of the balance in the general fund and the rainy day fund.
Okay, and it decreases, the cash reserves are decreasing because currently 100% of the reversions are considered in the cash reserves. Is that why I'm seeing
Yes.
a decrease in that percentage?
Yes. So as you would, if you appropriate monies from that, it would adjust that money down, that percentage down to 37.
Okay, and just for the general public, could you please describe what that percentage of cash reserves, what that means?
Yes. What we do is we take the year-end balances in the general fund and the rainy day fund after encumbrances. So imagine, you keep your checkbook and it's got a balance in it, and then you balance that against your bank account. Things that have not cleared basically are outstanding. We call those encumbrances. In the public sector, it's accounts payable. So we net those out because we would have to utilize that cash to get a net cash balance. We then look at what was the general fund budget approved for 2023, which was slightly over $50 million, and we divide that into the amount of total cash available to get the percent of reserves that remain at the beginning of the year. So in this particular case, after we closed the books and accounted for encumbrances, it was at 38.2%. And with your approval tonight, that would end up being a 37%. And our target's 33, which is basically 4 months of operating expenses, to give you an idea of what that represents.
Thank you. Can I ask another follow-up, or should I wait?
Go ahead and follow up one.
So for the Parks General Fund, what is the reserve balance?
I can give you that information as well. I am happy to report that that balance, and this is a combination of the Parks General Fund and the Parks Non-Reverting Fund, at the end of 2022 was 42.1%. If you approve their request, that would drop it down to 40%, and the target is, again, 33%. And huge shout out to Paul McDevitt and all of the people of the Parks Department that percentage when I came in back in late 2016 was about 5%, and they have worked very, very hard to get that increased up. And so for the first time since I've been back, the Parks Department hit their reserve target. So thanks so much to them. It allows them to breathe easier, and a lot of their revenue is on fees. The pandemic hit them very hard. Obviously, they shut down many of the activities they did, but due to a lot of hard work and scraping, we were able to achieve those savings for the first time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional questions? Okay. Seeing none. Back to you.
Okay, I think we have Jeff McMillan on Zoom.
On Zoom. Mr.
And he will
McMillan, are you
cover
with us?
the MVH portion of this overall appropriation.
Mr. McMillan, do we have Mr. McMillan with us?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan, could you check your audio, please? Ah,
We can see you, we can't hear you.
Mr. McMillan, we're still not getting your audio.
I'll go ahead and to keep things moving along, I'll jump in, and Jeff, you can spell me if you get your audio going. As a reminder, the state a number of years ago required us to split our motor vehicle highway, this is our street department main operating account, into a general and a restricted account. And so that was required by the Indiana State Board of Accounts. And for the last several years in the annual appropriation ordinance during the budget, you would see in the ordinance itself two balances, one representing the unrestricted and one representing the restricted amounts. And the total, we would report out on what the total was. And so we went through that process again this year as required by the State Board of Accounts. When the ordinance went up to the Department of Local Government Finance, they said, oh, we only want to see that in one total, and consequently only approved the unrestricted part of that budget. And so we've got two state agencies requesting us to do it two different ways. Surprising, I know. So consequently, we have to come back and appropriate the total amount of that budget. So this is a technical correction. It doesn't increase the budget. It has no impact on the operations. It's just to get the DLGF to sign off on what the actual budget was combined for the motor vehicle highway account.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Questions from council? Seeing none, we'll come back to you. Mr. Underwood, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl and Jeff. We'll move into the two ARPA requests. These are related to public safety. The one request is related to announcement by Mayor Hamilton that he intended to bring the firefighters' unions' pay up on par with what civil city employees got, which was 5%. Their contract was at 3%. So this brings them, so this request would allow us to make one-time payments to those firefighters to get their pay equal to the 5% that the rest of the civil city got, sans the ASME and police unions. This is in addition to the other benefits that we talked about during the budget that they were already able to avail themselves to, so it puts them on even par with everyone else. The second part of the request, the mayor announced back earlier this year a home buying program that would allow up to 10 firefighters and 10 police officers to obtain a $100,000 loan against the purchase of a house, that we would work with the bank to create the program, and essentially would provide $10,000 plus the related interest on those two programs, on that loan. And this would be in addition, basically a second mortgage against what they would take out net of the $100,000 to buy a house inside of the city limits. We intend to use ARPA funds for that, which is an allowable use. And this appropriates $500,000 for police and fire each to do that program. I have with me tonight Corporation Counsel Beth Kate and Personnel Director Emily Pearson, as well as Mary Catherine Carmichael and Council Member Sims. I will turn it over to Ms. Pearson, and she can give you statistics on the use of the two existing programs we have, one which is a rental assistance program and one which was a $10,000 down payment on a home, and the statistics of the people that have taken advantage of that.
Thank you. Ms. Pearson.
Good evening. My new name is actually Emily Fields, so.
Ms. Fields.
Currently, we have 4 firefighters and 16 police officers taking advantage of the rental assistance incentive that we offer. That's 700. Sure, sorry. 4 firefighters and 16 police officers taking advantage of the, or who have taken advantage of the $750 monthly rental assistance program. So 19 total public safety officers. 20 total. It's late, sorry.
And do you have the count of the number of people that have done the $10,000 down payment?
Yes. 5 people total have expressed interest in the $100,000 down payment assistant program. 4 of those are firefighters, and 1 of those is a police officer.
Does that conclude your comments?
That concludes it.
And questions from council? Councilmember Piedmont Smith?
So the part that is being allocated for the down payment assistance program is $500,000 for police and $500,000 for fire. Is that right, for firefighters? So that would fund 5 of each from each public safety division, right?
On the face of it, yes. What we're hoping is that once we have the final agreement with hopefully a local bank, which we're talking with several of them, is that we would create an escrow account at the bank and place this funds in it, and then time valued money over the 10-year period, because it's $10,000 per firefighter per year. They would be able to earn on that, and then that would rebuild the fund up.
Okay, so you would have $1 million that you would place in escrow, and it would earn money to build up that fund for more people to use.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Additional questions? Okay. Oh, Councilmember Rollo, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Underwood, so 5 people have expressed interest in the home purchase assistance, and so far it hasn't manifested. What's the obstacle? The obstacle is
Negotiating the final agreement with a local bank so that we can put the money in escrow and then allow them to go through the process.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
So
mortgage loans are a very highly regulated industry, so the bank has a lot of hoops that they've got to go through in order for us to put the program in place.
I see. Okay. And so this appropriation is, of course, part of that and would facilitate that in your mind, that the banks will, or a bank will be amenable to it with this appropriation, you believe?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional questions? My question for Mr. Underwood or whoever is appropriate is actually related to that. When you say expressed an interest in, I'm trying to get a sense of how close we are to it actually happening. I think we've relied pretty heavily on these expenditures to be an incentive, and I'm curious as to how much they've actually done that. So when we say five have expressed an interest, what exactly does that mean? Are we within 6 weeks of closing on something, or are we within, we don't know if we're in 10 years? I mean, could you be more specific? And I don't know if that's you, Ms. Fields, or?
I'll allow Corporation Counsel Beth Kate to tackle that one.
And Ms. Kate was not aware of that.
Good evening, council members. Beth Kate, Corporation Counsel. Council members, Kendall Laurie, if you're asking how close are we to getting an agreement done with the bank so that we can enable this program, I am hopeful that we are a short distance away from getting this agreement done. I can't give you an exact date certain. One of the things that that we've encountered in the negotiations is just the fact that, and this is kind of intrinsic to the banking world, but it is even more so perhaps against a skyline of some bank failures and everyone kind of getting, a little bit more concerned about making sure they're doing all due diligence on these on programs generally and loans generally. There are just a lot of voices on the other side that need to weigh in on this, and so some of this has just been making sure that that process is being fully undertaken by the bank, which we appreciate, of course. So in any case, I would like to think that, yes, we are weeks away from being able to, if weeks away, we're pushing hard to try to get this done so that we can go ahead and start it and start offering it. We have had expressions of interest, as Ms. Fields mentioned, and I think some people are excited to see it go forward. And your expression of support will obviously help that. So does that answer your question? All right, thank you.
Additional questions from council? Councilmember Piedmont Smith for round two.
So I know that the fire department is struggling to rebuild its ranks, and they've had a lot of people leave for higher paying jobs in recent years. So I'm concerned about this action, this appropriation to bring their pay up to a 5% increase over 2022, that this might not be enough to stem the flow of people resigning from our fire department. Can somebody speak to what the administration has in mind for 2024? Because I know that the fire department, the union contract isn't up until the end of 24, and so there have been some requests to open negotiations early, and I just wonder how does this extra pay for 2023 factor into the long-term solution to our firefighters leaving the department?
I'll try and tackle that, and the Deputy Mayor Carmichael was there as well. Obviously, the request tonight is for the current year, which is what we're trying to tackle. We have just begun preparations, and very, very early. We have no numbers yet on any of our major revenue streams and won't for a number of months. But certainly that will be something that we look at as we prepare that budget request. Uniquely, we know that there will be a new administration next year, a major change in the council as well. By law, we have to, propose, and you all have to review and approve a budget for next year. But certainly that contract, so we will take that into account as we look at that. And the mayor takes that very seriously. That's why you see the request tonight to tackle the current year. And we'll see what we can do as far as 2024's budget is concerned. In opening the contract early, I don't believe that is something that we are willing to do. For the mere fact is the contract runs through the end of next year. There'll be a new mayor, there'll be a new administration, there'll be a new council, and really, rather than try and open that up and negotiate a long-term contract by this group, we feel it's more appropriate to allow the incoming group to tackle that issue in the manner that they would think is best.
Additional response from the deputy mayor?
Yes, thank you. Mary Catherine Carmichael, Deputy Mayor. I think tonight's request is really a couple of ingredients in a bigger recipe for what we hope will be long-term success. These are programs that are innovative. We're going to try some new things. We've had, interestingly, when we've talked about these ideas at national conferences and other places, we see other communities' ears perk up like, wow, that's really an interesting thing. What a great thing to try. So I would say based on the initial responses that we've gotten, they do seem to be have some traction. Is it the whole schlemiel, as we say? No, it is not. Again, just a couple of ingredients to a bigger recipe to really encourage our public safety folks. And I would also say, as far as fire goes, Councilmember Piedmont Smith referenced all the people leaving for higher paying jobs. Certainly that is the case in many cases. I would also say we've had a very large number of people retiring. So that's also going to contribute to those folks leaving. Additionally, it's good to know that we have 20 new people who will be coming on yet this summer, and so we're pleased about that. We're working hard to get those numbers back up, and certainly their concerns and complaints are not falling on deaf ears. We obviously value and want to support and do the right thing for the department because we know the importance of public safety just like you do. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional questions from council? And Controller Underwood, is there anything further to present? I don't think so.
Nope, that's it. Okay. Thank you.
With that, let's go to our period of public comment. On Appropriation Ordinance 23-04, Deputy Attorney Kulak, you have an announcement, I believe?
Yes. And this public comment portion serves as the public hearing for this appropriation ordinance as published.
Thank you. And if you could extend our invitation on Zoom as well?
Yes, for anyone who wants to make a comment on Zoom, you can raise your hand using the Reactions tab. You can find that in the bar at the bottom or the More tab if you have a mobile device.
Thank you. And I see you've already signed in. If you could share your name for the record, please, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council. My name is Dave Askins with the B Square Bulletin. Just wanted to ask one clarifying question. Deputy Mayor Carmichael said that we have 20 more people coming on. That squares up with the number I've heard for the entering class for firefighters. So I was hoping just to get clarification that that's what she meant, that we have 20, actually the number I heard was 21 firefighters in the entering class for this summer. And a follow-up question to that, if in fact that's the right number, will all those firefighters be enjoying the same pay bump that this appropriation is meant to cover? Thanks.
Thank you. Deputy Attorney Kulak, are you seeing any commenters on Zoom?
At this time, no hands are raised right now.
Okay, and anyone further here in chambers? Seeing none, that'll conclude this period of public comment, that'll conclude this public hearing on Appropriation Ordinance 2304. Let's come back to council for additional questions. Seeing none, is there any, I'm sorry, Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
I guess I'll bite. So the new firefighters that have been hired recently, were they hired at the rates? I assume they were offered the rates of pay prior to this appropriation ordinance. Is that, Deputy Mayor Carmichael, is that accurate?
I wasn't directly involved in those hires, so I'm going to turn it over to folks who were. I don't want to misspeak, but I would say that our reporter friend Dave Askins is correct. The number is 21. I was off by 1. Thank you for setting me straight.
Does anybody else present have the answer about the pay for the new firefighters who are coming on board?
I'm the interim HR director. So the probationary employees will not receive those premium payments. They will get the $500 payment that most regular employees are going to get over the city. That's all I have to say.
Fine, yes.
Seeing none, is there additional final comment on Appropriation Ordinance 2304? Seeing none, Councilmember Piedmont Smith?
I hate it when it's the Piedmont Smith show, but I can't resist. I just want to say I'm pleased to support this appropriation ordinance. I know that in the council office, we have a few needs that will be fulfilled through these funds. And I'm happy to see that the housing program is moving ahead. I do think it's very innovative, and I hope that it has positive impact on retaining and attracting good employees in both fire and police. And I'm pleased to hear from Deputy Mayor Carmichael that this is just, the housing piece and the bonus for this year are just part of the solutions that the administration are working on to increase compensation for the firefighters, or, to address their concerns that they have expressed to all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Additional comment? Seeing none, let's move to a vote. Deputy Clerk Stoll, will you please call the roll on Appropriation Ordinance 23-04?
Councilmember Piedmont Smith? Yes. Scambalori? Yes. Rallo?
Yes.
Sandberg?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Bolin?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Sims?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And that takes us to legislation for first readings.
Madam President, I move that ordinance 2311 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion to introduce?
Councilmember Scambalori?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Sandberg?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Bolin?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Sims?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Will the clerk please read?
Ordinance 2311 to amend Title VI of the Bloomington Municipal Code entitled Health and Sanitation regarding updating and harmonizing Chapters 4 and 5 of Title VI of the Bloomington Municipal Code. Synopsis: this ordinance makes several changes to Title VI of the BMC to bring the title in line with changed local practice, to adjust service fees, to clarify references, and to harmonize current practices with the city code.
Point of order, Madam Chair. I believe the title was changed through an addendum to our packet.
Could you double check that, Deputy Clerk Stoll?
Yes. Councilmember Piedmont Smith is correct. Would you like me to read it again?
Please do.
Okay. And that's just the title correction. Okay. Ordinance 2311 to amend Title VI of the Bloomington Municipal Code entitled Health and Sanitation regarding updating and increasing fees for service and harmonizing Chapters 4 and 5 of Title VI of the Bloomington Municipal Code.
Thank you. So, by way of background, did you want to talk about scheduling conflicts or no? Fill in where I miss, how about? Okay. It's been brought to my attention that we have at least one council member with a scheduling conflict on June 7th that would prohibit them from participating in the meeting at all. They would need to participate remotely on an occasion when, and help me with this, Deputy Attorney Kulak, if I need it, on the occasion when we take up, when we potentially act to raise a fee, that council member may not participate in that meeting at all if their only option is to participate virtually. And so we are going to, I'm going to refer Ordinance 2311 to a committee of the whole meeting. We still have our regular session on June 7th, and we'll go over all this again in scheduling in a minute. But we still have our regular session on June 7th. I would like to refer 2311 to a committee of the whole meeting to begin at 8 p.m. on June 7th. That will allow everyone to participate in that conversation. So, Councilmember Volan.
To the start time for the committee of the whole, do we expect there will be a full hour and a half of business before that, or will there be a gap and we'll simply go and come back?
We do have some business that evening, and we have 2 reports coming from the mayor's office that evening.
Very good, thank you.
And there we have it. That'll take us to our
Mayor,
second.
Madam President?
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Point of order. Am I incorrect in assuming that the council person could participate but couldn't vote on an appropriation?
No, the way the law is written, that person could not participate in the meeting at all if there was any anticipated action to be taken.
And you verified this with our council attorney?
I did.
Yes, so under the open door law, under the electronic meetings of electronic communications by certain governing bodies, a member of, it's written to say a member of a governing body may not participate in a meeting by electronic communication if the governing body is attempting to take final action to establish or increase a fee. This proposed ordinance would increase the fees, and the language is written such that it would suggest that in getting guidance from the public access counselor's office, the person, the council member would be prohibited from participating in the entire meeting over electronic communication. They would have to be in person.
I see. So just for clarification, Madam President, when will there be final action on 2311? On the 7th? Or
That depends on the
14th?
council. In all likelihood, it will be on June 14th. Additional questions or comments? Councilmember Rallo, I still see your hand up, but
Yes, I may have a conflict on that date.
there's always the 21st, I was going to say. So, Councilmember
Okay,
Volan?
thank you.
What he's saying about conflict, you mean that you won't be able to attend the committee of the whole either?
I would attend by Zoom on the 14th.
Oh, but he won't be able to vote on the 14th.
Rallo, if you are only able to participate virtually on the 14th, and if we anticipate taking action that night, you would not be able to participate in the meeting at all.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which may push us to the 21st. Councilmember Volan.
Say, if it's any succor to Councilmember Rallo, that I believe that this is a significant enough issue that we're going to want the extra time. So, I mean, I would support taking it up at second reading on the 21st if that makes a difference. I mean, not that we need to vote on that now, but I just, like, this is a significant issue. It's complicated. We have a lot to talk about. So, does that help,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Rello? Yeah.
It does perhaps. I know we have enough time to, I think, work this through. So I'll be in touch with the council leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that will go to Committee of the Whole at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, June 7th. That'll follow a regular session of council. That takes us to our second of 2 periods of public comment. This is for items not on the agenda this evening. Could I see a show of hands of anyone who would like to offer comment during this second period? I'm not seeing anything here in chambers. Could you extend our invitation on Zoom, please?
Yes, for folks on Zoom who would like to make a public comment, you will need to raise your hand using the reactions feature at the bottom of the taskbar or the More tab. Currently, there are no hands raised, but one member just joined. If you just joined over Zoom and would like to make a comment, you would need to raise your hand.
I'm sorry,
using the
I
reactions
can,
tab.
maybe it's just me, I can barely hear you.
Apologies. There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not seeing any commenters here in chambers. So that'll conclude our second period of public comment. Let's take up matters of council schedule next.
So the only thing to note with the schedule is that the next regular session is not scheduled until June 7th next month, and that the Committee of the Whole will be meeting at 8 p.m.
And the regular session at 6:30.
The regular session is at 6:30, yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Is there any additional business for the evening? Seeing none, enjoy the rest of May. See you in June.